Hey everybody, it's Ron over at Becoming Enlightened Together. I just did an hour-long video, which I may or may not post, uh, basically talking about some of the other things I discuss, which can be geopolitical or spiritual, whatever the case may be, and it's actually a combination of those things and more. But I wanted to start this particular reading off, which is the weekly reading. Sunday the 8th all the way to Saturday the 14th of March 2026, but it's for whenever it is that you yourself stumble upon this. So we're going to be talking about this week's energy, and it starts off with a very positive one for the overall energy. The overall energy of the week is that of Berkana in the upright. In fact, all but there are two runes, 2 days this week, where the energy is reversed, but the overall energy is very positive. Now, Berkana is the rune that speaks about the birch tree goddess, or Birch Goddess, one of her names anyway, one of her designations. She's talked about as being a goddess of fertility, protection of both women and children, guides in the afterlife, somebody that can be compared to, in some cases, like to Mother Gaia or Earth or Mother Nature, whatever the case may be. She looks after the animals and so on as well. But it also talks about purity and fertility. It talks about birth, creation. It talks about mental, physical, and spiritual growth at this time period. Lots of things are changing, and we're seeing that, and a lot of it's manifesting as not so good things. But remember, it's always darkest before the dawn. So we're going to see increasing levels of this darkness, but I assure you it will at some point end, and it will be a completely different world than what we have today, at least for those who are evolving and moving into this new timeline. And I say that because there are going to be many who are watching this, or may watch this, or may not. I'm not really sure how that's going to work. Perhaps those who are not going to be moving along with us are not going to see things like this, or even if they do, they're just going to dismiss it instantly. Not to say that my words are going to, them by themselves, have an impact in terms of saving you or helping you or whatever. I do this with that in mind, with to help, to edify in some way, hopefully bring some form of clarity, as well as some insight that can help people in terms of decision-making processes for that particular week or that particular day. Okay, but it's already getting rough, and we can see that. We're seeing more and more exposure of things that have been happening literally right under our noses for hundreds, in some cases thousands of years, literally. And this is something that I have been researching for decades, and literally researching for decades. So, and nobody was talking about a lot of these things when I first started talking about them here. And I use Facebook as one example, because I've got the physical proof to prove it. For over 16, 17 years now, daily, I have been posting things out there which are hard to find, hard to see, hard to believe, and yet I've always given them with their corresponding resources or sources, and many of the times I go right to the source itself, when I'm quoting about something. I won't use third parties or what have you. That's not always possible, and it's becoming harder today because one of the things I talked about in the video I just made deals with this. It looks like they are re-editing, especially a lot of the literature that I have utilized many times over those decades. So, and because I've lost everything that I've owned more than once in my lifetime, when I get one of the two things that are like treasures to me, and my treasures are not money per se, they were the books. I had a very large library of books, in every room almost. I had bookshelves in every room. So, and in those books, many of them are very, very hard to find. Some of them are right from some of these secret societies where only the members themselves are allowed typically to have those books. Um, but I found a way. And some occult ones, I've even got an old dictionary that's almost 200 years old. So it's right behind me now. It's like that thick. It's like 3 times thicker than any other dictionary I've seen to date. So, and it's got many, many more words, obviously, because it's very small print, even though it's a very big book. Very thick, big, tall book. I can't even get my hands, in the parameters of the video. But anyway, long story short, there's things that are happening, and they're happening on social media as well. Many of the things I've posted many times over those decades are no longer there. They've gone. They're disappeared. They are no longer present. And I don't mean just on Facebook. I'm talking about even like YouTube and other places. And I'm talking about having at that moment, real-time footage of something that had happened that you're not going to see on the news. Real-time footage. Somebody saying something, and then of course, that's where all the friggin' police, for the system, the group, the evil megalomaniacs who are really running things, come out there and they try to police things up real quick. Anyway, long story short, I don't want to get off into another hour-long tangent. So there's things happening in this world, and as bleak as it seems right now, it will get better. So, and I try to be an example in the things that I do and how I respond. And I've survived through a lot of things. Everything from, well, a lot of things. I'll just leave it at that. And the secret is you don't give up. And I believe that the universe does favor those who actually have that tenacity, that mindset, that heart, that courage, the strength, the fortitude to just keep going, even though you keep getting knocked down, or you just, it's just not fair. The world is not fair. Okay? So, you just pick yourself up, process it, scream, cry, punch a hole in a wall or two. That's not exactly a healthy way of doing it, but, go ahead and burn off that steam in a way that allows you to, get a hold of yourself once again and then move forward. Don't let these motherfuckers win, no matter what it takes. So, anyways, now Berkana, other than fertility and things of that nature, it talks about growth, new beginnings, but it also talks about new ventures, new relationships, arousal of desire, a new partnership. It doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. It could also be some type of business, or it could be a culmination of both. Whatever it is, it's very, very positive. Okay, so Berchka being the overall energy for the week is a very positive, energy to have. So regardless of the day. Now, the energy that we have for Sunday is that of Perthro. Now, Perthro also is in the upright. And Perthro for Sunday talks about things such as games and gaming, games of chance, dice cup, lots, things that are hidden and secret, initiations, things feminine, divine feminine, vagina, feminine fertility. It talks about occult abilities, knowledge of one's fate, knowledge of the future. It talks about, again, fellowship, joy, fertility. So there's a lot to be said about fertility in this. Masculine and feminine, by the way. So far, we've seen feminine in both. And it talks about evolutionary changes, kind of what I was trying to speak on just a few seconds ago. Things are changing in our world. So I hope that you have been making changes too. Because in order to survive in any situation, it's not the biggest, it's not the strongest, it's not the fastest, it's not the one who has all the toys and this, that, and the other thing. It's the one who's most capable of adaptation. Look it up. Everywhere that you look in terms of survival, and I've been through a lot of the different survival schools in the military. 12 years in the Marine Corps. I went through desert survival, water survival, mountain survival. I went through cold weather training. I trained many times, of course, in the deserts of the world. But I went through schools for these types of things. To learn how to survive in the various different situations and climate and environment. In some cases, hostile, situations you might find yourself. And it always comes down to the same thing. Are you able to adapt? I mean, you can't make the world adapt to you. You have to be able to adapt to your circumstances and the situation itself. Okay? So, now Monday, our energy is that of another very powerful rune. It's that of, where'd it go? Oh, it's right there. I'm sorry, these runes sometimes, I got a hard table here, and when these stones hit the table, they go bouncing and flying everywhere, so. Anyway, it's Algus. Algus looks like a peace sign. Okay, it's the one that Winston Churchill made so popular back in World War II. And it also is in the uprights, another very powerful rune. So the energy for today, being Algus, is basically talks about friendship, one soul, optimism and aspiration, but it also talks about shielding, acting as a guardian of sorts, shielding and the protective urge to shield oneself and others, friends, family, things of that nature. It talks about guardianship and the warding off even of evil. So it's not just used in this three-dimensional plane, it's also used, in the higher planes. And, as above, so below, well, that means or implies things usually happen in the heavenlies before they happen here in this plane of existence. So, if you are going through some things, Algus is a very good energy to have as your overall energy. And for today, that's exactly what it is. And married together with the overall energy of the entire week, which is Berkana, very, very positive energy, powerful as well. So this also talks about a connection with the gods, whatever that is for you personally. It doesn't have to be, like from the Norse perspective. It could be, Celtic, Druidic. It could be Judeo-Christian. It could be Islamic. It matters not. Again, it's not what you believe per se. It's what you do that matters, or don't do. So you're going to find good and bad in every one of those religions I just spoke of, or gods. So I call upon all of them. In fact, good and bad, they all have their place. Okay, you can't have one without the other, and that's just a fact. So, and they're both on the same line. They're just at opposite ends of that line. Good, evil, right? Balance is what we're looking for. We all have a light and dark side. We want to balance those energies together. And that is one of the secrets you will find if you study the esoteric, occultic, hermetic works, as well as the religious, the dogmatic works that are available to anybody, If you study those, you look at those, you will discover that for yourself. So yes, that's one of the secrets that you just got, that they would hold over you, for 33 degrees and, Scottish Rite Freemasonry or whatever. So, it's not the only one, of course, but that's just one of many. I gave it to you for free. Another truth, by the way. Alright, so this also talks about your intuition. So we've seen that echoed twice this week. Trusting your gut, as I was saying earlier. talks about, basically holding on to your success at this point, whether it was a position that was won or earned. And that's important for somebody out there. Now, Tuesday's energy is that of Ewas. Now, Ewas looks like a letter M, but it's actually their letter E. Okay? Now, Ewas in the upright talks about horses. It talks about horse and rider. It talks about horse and carriage. It talks about transportation. It talks about the wheels or the steering wheel. Anything to do with movement or forward momentum, if you will, or travel. That's what it's referring to. So, but it also talks about trust, harmony, and loyalty. So this also applies to relationships, and it applies to our ability to work together as a team to get something accomplished, as I was stating earlier. Well, I stated in an hour-long video that I'm still not decided yet whether I'm going to post. I was ranting and raving. But the point is that it talks about things such as ideal marriages or relationships or partnerships. It talks about, again, gradual development of something or progress being indicated. It talks about confirmation beyond doubt of the runes that are around it. So the runes that are around it, well, again, I just pointed out 4 of them. Very, very positive indeed. All very powerful. So that is tomorrow's energy. Now, Wednesday's energy is that of Degas. Now, Degas also, this one is in the reverse. Okay. Now, not all reversals, just like in tarot, not all reverse tarot cards are negative per se. Some of them are actually positive. It's the same way with the runes, but the meanings of them can be very, at times, obscure. In other words, what you would think would be the opposite, for example, of an energy isn't necessarily clearly shown as described in the various books that I have that talk specifically about runes and rune lore and their history and talking about the have 'em all and the poems that are attributed to Odin himself, where we get a lot of the information about these things. And it was Odin, the great god Odin, that was actually the one who got the knowledge of the runes, hung himself from the world tree, where there are 9, if you will, realms, right? And he hung there for 9 days and 9 nights. He basically ripped out his eyeball, threw it in the well, and on that 9th day or 9th night, I don't remember which, he basically received his response from the Norns. He got his wish as far as, I think it was the Norns. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into the mythology of all of it. I just want to talk about the, beginnings of the runes, if you will. The number 9, again, is very, very significant in their belief system. And, I've already talked in the past about my actual connection to 9s. I have many. So, again, it's just another connection with my ancient heritage. Now, what does Degas in the reverse actually mean? Now, Degas in the reverse, again, it talks about not negative things at all, but it could be. Now, it talks about radical changes. Remember, adaptation is the premier trait, attribute, characteristic for the survivalist. So, learn how to adapt. Okay? Radical change. It talks about attitudes. Again, that's everything in terms of what I just stated. Your attitude can either help you save your life and others, or it can actually lead to quite the opposite end. Now it talks about completions and limits of things, endings. It talks about someone who's coming full circle with something. So there may be somebody out there who's actually fallen, if you will, for some time. But he's or she has worked through the process, and through perhaps karma or some other thing, they have seen, if you will, the error of their ways, and they have corrected themselves. Okay, so that's important. But it also talks about the other possibility, and that would be blindness and hopelessness. And that's exactly what you would feel if you were not finding a way to adapt to your current situation. And again, I've experienced a lot of these things, so I know, and it is not easy. Believe me, I've had many confrontations, between me and spirit. I've done a lot of these things single-handedly or alone. I mean, sometimes there was nobody there to help. Other times I did have help. I never asked for help, but there were times when help was made available to me, and it was primarily my own children, in some ways. And sometimes it's just complete strangers. And along the way, I was able, even in my lowest point, able to help perfect strangers. And one time was a tarot reading. A mother had just had her child stolen from her, basically, And I saw her, she saw me at the park, whatever the case may be. She came up to me, she was just bawling her eyes out, And she saw me doing the tarot that particular day. And she asked me to do a tarot reading for her. I said, oh my God, what if I pull out some really negative shit? That's just going to make things so much worse. But anyways, we did. And I was able to vouch some of the things that indeed she was going through and had happened to her, but also a positive outcome that hadn't yet happened to her. And this is something I haven't shared yet with anybody, but I shared it with my son. And I've seen her again subsequently after that. And as she was homeless at that time period. And that's why she lost her child. And that's why she was so distraught, she was just, I've never seen somebody so immersed in sorrow before. And at the end of that reading, the very last card that I got was the Sun card in the upright as the overall future outcome. It's the brightest, most positive card in the tarot deck. So, when I explained to her how this tied in with everything else that we had just seen, with the cards that I pulled for her, she was, her whole demeanor changed. And then I saw her a week later, and she had found a new guy, and she basically told me that she's getting her child back, and this, she gave me the biggest, fattest hug and everything else. I was out there, friggin' living off the land for months, so I hadn't had a shower in probably weeks. I was swimming every day and so on. So, but I admit it, I was a little on the gross side perhaps, and it didn't matter. All she could see was love and light at that moment, and it made my whole fucking month. I was so glad that I went with my heart at that point instead of my intellect. Sometimes you have to play that the game of which one is more applicable at this circumstance, because sometimes those two things do war against each other, and that too is something that's written about in a lot of religious texts. Who can know the heart? It's despitefully wicked among all things, in the Bible and so on. But I argue with that. It's not being completely the truth. Or I should say, it's not taken in its complete context. The heart sometimes is the truth indeed. What you're feeling there, your empathy and everything is the truth. How you respond to that truth, though, is, sometimes with the intellect can get things muddled up a little bit. Anyway, I'm getting in a tangent again. Alright, so Wednesday, it could be a little bit of a challenge for somebody out there, okay? Now, for Thursday, we also have a negative rune, or I should say one in the reverse, and it's the only two for the week. And for Thursday this week, it's going to be Gibo. Now, Gibo is basically in the upright. X marks the spot on a treasure map. It's very positive. So you might think to yourself immediately, well, that means it's going to be pretty horrible then. I'm going to lose everything, because it's in the reversal in this particular case. So, Gibo in the reverse talks about problems with the roots of an emotional nature. So you may be having something that you've been going through. Maybe you just, you've broken up with somebody, whether it's a lover, maybe a friend, family member, it could be your actual spouse, I don't know. And so you're really still trying to, circumvent the negative and trying to really transmute the negative energy into something positive. And sometimes, if you're not good at doing those kinds of things, it can take quite a while to process that energy. So that's what we're talking about here, okay? It also talks about greed, loneliness, dependency. Talks about perhaps feeling over-obligated, a sense of toil and privation, and even bribery. Trying to pay your way out of a situation, a circumstance that you, I'm sure, created for yourself. Now, when I say you, and you're looking back at me on this video, I'm not necessarily talking to the person that's watching this. Not everything that I'm talking about here and every day of the energy that I'm talking about is going to be applicable to every person who views this. The things that do resonate, again, this is where you have to rely on your own intuition to realize whether that energy is for you specifically or not for you specifically. Okay, but that being said, it definitely is for somebody out there, and it does have a very powerful energy that's permeating our Thursday coming up. Okay, so greed, loneliness, dependency, again, privation, bribery. Those are all things that we may also experience Wednesday and Thursday. Now, Friday, things get much better again, where we once again have Ewas in the upright. Okay, we already talked about that because we had that also on Tuesday. So Tuesday's energy is the same energy, and that was the energy that started, or I should say ended, the positive notions of, very, very, very positive, very positive aspects, for the collective from Sunday all the way to Tuesday. It's all very, very powerful, very positive. And from Wednesday to Thursday, was all negative, but Friday it goes back positive again with the very positive energy that we left, and started Wednesday and Thursday with. So it was, again, talks about movement, talks about horses, horse and rider, talks about vehicle and the driver. It talks about, working together in unison, one with the other, to have harmony. It talks about peace. It talks about, ideal marriage or partnership. It talks about gradual development, progress, and confirmation beyond doubt of the other runes around it. Okay? Now, to end this week off, what we have on Saturday is another very powerful rune. And this one talks about the masculine aspects. In particular, this is Urus. This would be in tarot a fire sign, undoubtedly. Urus talks about health, strength, vitality, talks about courage. It talks about, it's modeled after the observations of a now extinct ox in Central Europe, that was hunted into extinction about 500 years ago. But it's a very powerful, very quick beast, with huge horns and very powerful and everything else. So that's what they use to model this particular, energy around. So it talks about untamed potential, great energy and health basically being available to you. It talks about perhaps distant influences, and that could be like for this experience that you're having with me right now, or it could be something else altogether. It talks about, again, tenacity as well as courage. And I started this off by telling you how those who are of a tenacious nature are basically favored in the universe, or the universe. I guess it does. It just favors that type of mindset because you just keep picking yourself up. We've all seen that. I mean, who doesn't love a story like, let's say, Rocky? I mean, how many freaking Rocky movies are there? I mean, like 20 or some shit, you know? It's why. I mean, they're not great movies, right? But the fact is that you see an underdog rises up against all the odds and wins in the end. And you just love the guy. He's just a lovable, hard work. And he keeps picking himself up, And the same thing with, whether it's a military or a war movie of some kind, we feel that same reverence for these people who put themselves out there, sacrifice their own comfort, feelings, relationships, even their own lives a lot of the time, and you relate to that because you want to be that. You want to emulate that. You want to think that you yourself would do those things under those circumstances. And those are the kinds of the people that inspire people around them to do the same. Courage, like, fear, or I don't know why the words always escape me when I get on these platforms. But terror and things of that nature, they are basically things that, they extend beyond the originator of those emotions. So one person showing courage can actually rally together an entire group, however big or small that group is, of terrified individuals to do the unthinkable and make it happen, or at least making what even their enemies would respect as a heroic attempt at that. And we see that. I'm a student of, like I said, of history, and I like war. Well, I read about it. In fact, I was, expected to do that. There was a reading list for, the military at that time, or the Marines at that time. I don't know. I can't speak about all the other branches of the military, but you were supposed to read certain books, and certain levels of your rank and so on. And I was already doing that anyway, so. But I forgot what I was going to do with that or say with that. But anyways, Ulrus also talks about understanding. He talks about wisdom. Talks about changes. And it talks about masculine potency and virility, sexual desire. It talks about having the power to shape oneself by sheer will alone. So we're seeing a lot of that mind over matter this week. So that's what I want to leave you with. And it's a very, very positive week. But that doesn't mean there isn't going to be challenges. There always are. But we have everything that we need in order to overcome those challenges. If nothing else, use the notion that your very actions of picking yourself up, even though you just want to fucking give up, or you just want to say, why? Why the fuck does this stuff keep happening? Or why did they get away with this? Or, just whatever the case may be for you personally, try to just brush yourself off, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, and move forward. Because even though you should do that anyways because it's right, and I know how hard it is to do even though it is right, what you don't know is, even if you can't see it, when you're doing it, there may be somebody who does observe or can observe, has observed that one single thing that you've done that inspired them. And they in turn inspired maybe 2 others. And who inspired 2 others from them. And it, of course, the butterfly effect I was talking about earlier. So always take the opportunities, if you can, to try to do good, to try to make a change for the better in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean to sacrifice all of your time, energy, resources, and everything else, or to be, looked at as Mr. I'm the greatest or the goodest, or I know that's not proper grammar, but you know what I mean. We're not doing that because we want people to look up to us, at least not from the sense of a prideful mindset. Only in the sense that that it took a lot of strength, courage, and tenacity for you to get up again. That might have been the second, third, 10th, 20th, 50th time, even in that same day, that you had to do that. And you were just ready just to say, fuck it. But you didn't. And that's the important thing. That frame of mind that says you just keep going. And I know it's so much easier to say, or even now I can say it even with a smile on my face. And as I'm doing that, I'm thinking to myself, damn, but I remember this, and I remember that, and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, man, I wasn't thinking that way then. I was thinking, God, if you only give us what we can handle, you must think I can handle a lot. So, and it's never fun or comfortable. So, but here we are, right? So, with that being said, of course, I wish you guys all victory. And I will see you very, very soon. Okay? I'm going to try to be more consistent. I know it's easier to say than to do. And I still have a lot of things outside of this that I have to do. Trying to get organized and all that. I've been neglecting this, music, I've been neglecting a lot of things that I enjoy doing. Because there's things that sometimes have to be attended to. Again, that's the adaptation I was talking about. Sometimes you might be under the weather. Sometimes you might just be, because of things that are going on in your life or somebody that's close to you, you're, spending a lot of time in your head or your heart. And, we all go through those times, so don't be angry at me, all one or two of you. I hope that my numbers increase at some point. But this is not me trying to be, all things to all people and whatever. Even if it is just for one person, then so be it. Like I said, I'm doing this kind of as a way of just being helpful, in this struggle called life. Because one thing about people that go through these things a lot of times, they can go one of two ways. I've never seen anybody really just hanging out in that gray area, but you can either be somebody, and this is the way I feel, I don't like the idea of seeing anybody have to go through the things that I went through, to feel the things that I had to feel, to feel that, you've been defeated, even though you've done everything that you knew or believed to be right. And it's not to say that we can't find ourselves in those situations because of things that we've done that were wrong or made mistakes. I've had those things happen to me too. I was just reflecting back on my moment of error in the Marine Corps, for example, where I had my office hours, which is like you know, going to court for a misdemeanor, up to a misdemeanor, but below a felony, typically. Um, for calling out a captain, basically telling him what he could do with himself, giving him some options. I didn't feel that he was right. In fact, I really felt that he was wrong. I mean, I had done many things, improved myself many times over, and I was filling positions that were many levels above my rank. But this new guy comes in, and he becomes a commanding officer and so on, and it doesn't matter. Long story short was, I know that I screwed up, and so did he. He wasn't going to take any responsibility for his actions, and I could have still done the right thing anyways. But I said, this motherfucker. So instead of being humble like I should have been, I just let him have it. And you don't do that in the Marine Corps. A sergeant telling a captain to go pleasure himself, is usually met with some very harsh penalties. But again, and this was right before Desert Storm too, so they did everything they could to punish me, and I took a lot of it because I know I deserved it. I know I didn't handle it the way I should have, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it because one, it gave me a teaching moment, as hard as it was, difficult as it was to go through. On the other hand, I had the satisfaction of saying, yeah, I got the last word into you, motherfucker. Yeah. And I know that's not going to happen again, but I was so glad I did get that opportunity. So, anyway, so I'll tell that story in its completion one day because it is a pretty good story. But anyway, I want you all to have a great week and all that. And again, I will try to be more consistent with this. If you like it, give me a thumbs up or something, please. I mean, all one or two of you. And hopefully I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Or it's already tomorrow. So hopefully I'll see you in a couple hours or whatever. I'm trying to get a routine. I'm trying to put all the things in their proper places at this time. And it's sometimes, as far as priorities go, you tend to put things that you want to do ahead of the things that you have to do. And it doesn't always work out, So, anyway, you guys take care. God bless. I'll see you tomorrow.